Welcome to Working on Fire News. My name is Albert Sneeman, and this is what we have in this edition. In this episode, we feature the WOF Managing Directors on their thoughts and their experiences over the past few months and their vision for Working on Fire program going forward.
Well, Llewellyn and Winston, you've had a rather hectic induction to the Working on Fire program. You're just about coming up to your 4-month mark and yourself your 5-month mark. I think it would be useful to share with the Working on Fire community a bit of your experiences. Maybe if I can put to you, Llewellyn, what was your first impression as you joined this program from the 1st of September on?
My first impression was it was very exciting. It's a different industry compared to what I'm familiar with. There's a lot of dynamics. It's a lot more dynamic and there's a lot more variables than I thought there would be. There's just too many things happening at the same time that need to happen at the same time to make the business function as a whole. And I think it's overwhelming. Initially it was very overwhelming.
I think the first thing that struck me is the passion of the people, the passion towards the program and the commitment and the love for the work. And how whenever you go out, the enthusiasm the people, like just open arms, they expect you, you almost welcome wherever you go. But at the end, if you start going in, then you start realizing you're dealing with people, real people that's out there want to make a difference.
You know, what we've done in terms of the succession planning in Working on Fire, not only have we seen the need that this is such a large program that we should have an MD and a deputy MD, but we took quite a bit of time and consideration in ensuring, first of all, that we recruited the right people. We structured a program which was designed to take you as many of the facets of the program. We had a roadshow. Winston joined us on the first roadshow. You joined us. But we had a number of different events that you participated in. We started actually on Arbor Day. We had the Deputy Minister at a graduation of crew leaders, an all-female Type 2 crew leader course. We've had participation in DEA events such as the colloquium that we had in Arniston. We've had just quite a tremendous exposure to you. Would you like to comment a bit about how you found all these different facets of the Working on Fire program?
I would say if I look at especially all that events that we had, the one thing that stood out is that when you walk in there with a yellow shirt, people know this is Working on Fire. And I think that as a brand for me, whenever I go, even today when I'm sitting here and driving, people actually turn their head and want to find out, they want to read what is this badge. So I think it's a brand that we are carrying, again, with that passion that our firefighters are putting on display. It's actually amazing that we as a community can actually attract the attention of a larger audience out there.
Your experience of all the events that you went to, Llewellyn?
Initially, it was mind-boggling to look at the scope and the number of variables that actually come into play that culminate in terms of the Working on Fire program. And I think the one event that really stood out for me was Kiskamahok, primarily because this was further down in terms of my induction, but that's where everything actually came together, where everything worked as it should. The amount of influence that we actually had with political principles at that particular event. And all of it culminated in Kiskamahok. I think that's something that we need to try and emulate, because it's not just the yellow shirt. It's not just the firefighters or just the helicopters or the aircraft. It's actually a brand, as Winston quite rightly put, in government and within the forestry and fire community. But the rest of the country, we have a lot of work in terms of what we need to do there. What I'm thinking is that we need to emulate what we did at Kiskamahok on a national level.
Now, you know, I said there were many events. You mentioned Kiskama stood out for you. Any other particular event out of the range of events that we participated?
Yeah, I think it's not one of the events per se, but for me is when I went to Qatar for the recruitment process. And you see these young men and ladies coming in there, all eager and keen to compete for those 25 spots. And then you realize we are making a difference, because Qatar is in the Eastern Cape, not far from Kiskamahok, but it's really remote. And so the commitment, people all want to join. And at the end, after we've done the selection process, we all gathered in the hall, we gave feedback. And some were unsuccessful, but nobody had any hard feelings, and they said they're going to come back and they're going to try. And then you realize that this program really makes a difference in the lives of people. So for me, that was actually the event. Case Kammerhoek was good, but that one was on grassroots level, where we make an impact and people come in. And I think it's what really struck me is that it's quite a wide, diverse group of people coming in. But at the end, once, and I've seen them actually after their graduation, then they're a totally different group of people, proud, walk tall, and they greet you and they say, "Sir," I remember you were at the screening. And then you start realizing that the transformation in the lives of the young people that we have got a major transformation impact on them. And they came in as recruits, they walk out as proud South Africans.
Winston, you coined the term initially, about restoring dignity, and we've embraced that in terms of our strapline, restoring dignity, saving lives, protecting the environment. How do you feel about going forward with that type of identity, Llewellyn?
I think it speaks to an emotion in terms of what our intent is and what the founders of the company wanted to actually achieve at the end of the day. This is not a business for making money. This is a business for social good. This is a business where we have to give a part of ourselves into the business, our passion, our integrity, and we have to try and look at how do we get everybody else to follow within those footsteps. And I'm not talking in the general WOF community or in the WOF staff. I'm talking about everybody in terms of EPWP. We all need to start working towards that direction. To be frank, we know that the economy is challenging at the moment. Unemployment is rife. Youth unemployment is even worse. We are making a significant difference in that particular area, but what we're doing is a drop in the ocean in terms of what we can do and where we can go. And I think what we need to look at is that how do we take not just our model, but our values and our systems and our processes and all of it together and make a difference in the communities that we work in.
I think it's refreshing to hear that, our incoming MD and Deputy MD are so passionate about the values that we're promoting. But I'd like to take them back to an early experience also, when they were also on the fire line. Llewellyn, do you remember that?
Trying not to remember that. But
what did that mean for you into going out there?
That gave me a new appreciation for what happens on the ground. You have newfound respect for the discipline, for the structure, for the command and control, for the firefighters. How they act, how they behave. They're professional. They're there to do a function, a very important function. They can't afford to make a mistake because people lose their lives. It's indicative of the discipline, of the culture, of the values, of the organizational structure, of all the BOPs, how everything should work well together. Unfortunately, my experience was haphazard, both primarily because I'm not fit. And I wasn't in that position where I should be on a fire line. And I can understand why the 2.4 is so important, why the discipline is so important. It's indicative of how everything should work well together.
I've been scared a couple of times in my life, but the most scary moment is when the helicopter came over with a Bambi bucket hanging and it's about to drop at water. And I said, "Winston, this is close." And the water dropped just a few meters from me. And it was a relief, but then also I realized the accuracy of which that water drops has been done. That was amazing. And while we were on the fire line, and Llewellyn mentioned the discipline, how people listen to the crew leaders, how they listen to the GOMs, and they act as a team. And for me, that was actually, first of all, it was extremely hard to run through fire a couple of times. But at the end, you're a team, and you look out for one another. And that I've noticed is that if I was just slightly off kilt, I was just slowly, "Sir, just go to the right." And not "Sir," but we're a team, move. And the discipline was there. But at the end, when you sit down, you're exhausted. And then you realize that fire can either be a friend or it can be a foe. And we have to be quite respectful. And we have to be quite respectful towards how we treat the fires. And for that reason, as Llewellyn said, your training is actually quite critical. So I can't see us just taking any person from the street, put him into this program without the appropriate training, without appropriate protective clothing.
You guys were also fortunate to participate in a graduation ceremony of an all-female Type 2 crew leader course where we had Deputy Minister Barbara Thompson in attendance. What was your impressions of that ceremony?
I think what stands out the most for me were the graduates. the cadets, in the way that they appreciated the recognition, understanding what they have gone through to actually come to that point where they qualify as a crew leader. And then talking to some of them and understanding their background and looking at where they come from and what would they be doing if they weren't in this program. I think that was a significant difference and a significant event in that firefighter's life. The way, the excitement that they had post the graduation, where they all celebrated and they were laughing and happy and jovial, and the amount of relief and respect that they have, not just for the program but for one another as well. And I think that's one thing that the program actually does that doesn't come out too clearly. It gives people self-respect. And I saw that at the crew leader graduation. We saw firefighters, especially female firefighters, with a lot more self-esteem, self-respect and self-worth.
You saw our crew leaders performing quite a bit of physical tasks there. You also saw the announcement of our relationship with the Department of Correctional Services in terms of the parolee program. What's your impression of that graduation?
I think if I look at that fitness, it was awesome. I tried to imagine myself doing that, and I know I would have failed dismally. So for that fitness is give mental strength, which I really think it's critical. But if one look how they carry themselves that day through that fitness, and also the parolees, and I was quite fortunate. One of my earlier road trips to meet the parolee from Suikerbos rand, and when I walked up there and she saw me, she ran towards me and gave me a hug and said, "Sir, it was nice to see you. It's nice being here. Thanks for being here." And then you realize you make a difference in a person's life. You bring that pride back, and that program taught them. And I asked them, "Is it tough?" They didn't talk about the tough. They said, "I'm now a crew leader. I'm a leader." And I think it's so through the pain and through the hard work, realize that there's opportunity. Now they can move on. And that for me is when I look at it and I said, well done.
And the road trip that we went on as the MDs, your summary kind of comment, what did that leave you with?
I think that proved one point that a lot of people within the organization were trying to tell me, that each province has its unique dynamics. No one province is the same. You have different environmental factors, different economic factors, different ground factors. And that significantly changes how you tell your operations around what goes on in each province. I think there's a lot of work that we still need to do in terms of amalgamation, how we operate, what we do, our strategies that we employ. But the road trip was, to a degree, an eye-opener, understanding what goes on a provincial level and also what goes on a ground level. And it's significantly different than what you read on a piece of paper.
As Llewellyn said, it's unique. And the energy coming from the various regions, the openness that they accept, and the willingness, and they're so keen to share all the activities, what they're doing in the province. For me, that is good. They are willing to share, they like to share, and also what they pick up is there's almost like a small competition among the provinces. Say who is the best, and you can always see if you talk to the people, they want to ask you, are we better than the other province? And that is, I think, that competition we have to harness, and they also want to learn from the other provinces. What are they doing in the other provinces? And they're good, and then say, why, sir? So that competition, I think it's good and it's healthy, but I would say it's next year we got our work cut out for us.
I certainly think it's something we must inculcate in the provinces. I'd like to see a provincial competition, certainly for the teams, but also for the management coming forward. What do you see as the key challenges going forward? And what would you, in closing, also want to communicate both to our firefighters and our management?
I think, it's been a tough year. It's been a very, very tough year. There's been a lot of dynamics, a lot of changes. And I think this is what we need to prepare ourselves for in the future. There's always going to be changes, and there's always going to be tighter deadlines and bigger challenges that we need to achieve. Conditions are going to get tougher and tougher. The environment we work in, the economy we work in, the pressures that we're under, the scope that we need to actually fulfill in terms of our mandate, and it's only going to get bigger and better. But we can only succeed if we have a plan and we work towards the plan collectively. And that plan needs to be clear, crisp, everybody needs to understand it, and we all need to understand that there will be challenges, there will be obstacles, but it's not planning for the obstacles, it's planning how to deal with it. And the attitude and behavior we should have is that something comes our way, we need to work through it as quickly as possible and move on to the next challenge. And that's how we're going to succeed going forward.
Winston?
I think going forward, the next year, I think we'll have to build strongly on our values as a company. That be our guiding light. And whatever we do let me do it focusing on respect, restoring the dignity within one another, and in our dealings with one another, let's also look at the dignity in which we do in our dealings. One thing I would say we'll definitely have to also address next year is the policies, amount of red tapes. At the end, we have to go back to what we're there for, is to restore dignity. Look at our beneficiaries. So how can we assist them in going forward, and not how can we write a policy to assist management in dealing with issues. A message for the firefighters is that you're extremely valuable for society. We appreciate your input, your commitment, your passion to two things. We are restoring the dignity in you. You're giving back to us is you're protecting the environment, which leaves a legacy, and then you're also saving lives. And there's not many people that can be called and come forth and do all those things for the nation, for the country. For that, I think I commend them.
As we conclude this process of transition, I will obviously be moving out from the role of MD as of the 1st of January 2015, and Llewellyn will assume the role of MD, and Winston will be assisting in terms of the Deputy MD position. I will not necessarily be leaving the program behind. I will still continue to be interacting, providing service relating to government liaison, and maybe tackling any specific projects that they might find us necessary to tackle and try and resolve. And I'll obviously be there also to support them in whatever capacity they might find necessary. So I think the future looks quite bright. We've had quite a fruitful, intense, but I think a detailed sort of handover period. And I'm fairly confident that the management we have in place will certainly take Working on Fire program forward. Thank you. In this edition, we are covering the third edition of the Aishe Games. We started this in 2012, where we invited all the provinces, the structural and the hat teams to join us in a sports festival, which we started off here at Zonderwater Prison Facilities in Gauteng. In the sports festival, we obviously have soccer, both men's and women's soccer. In the past, we've had archery, we've had golf as new events in the program. We've also had the traditional exercise. We do the 2.4, the push-ups, the pull-ups. And this year, of course, we also have the netball competition for the ladies' teams, as well as a whole day devoted to various fun team-building events that we've had.
The Aishe Games 2014 were held in the Gauteng province, and once the MDs gave their welcoming messages, Zola 7 gave a motivational speech to our firefighters. Games started off with soccer challenges, netball, which everyone enjoyed. The choir competitions were held later that evening. The following day was up and early for fun obstacle courses, which were very challenging.
As you can see, all the firefighters are busy doing something, and by the looks of things, they are having fun. As you can see there, some of them are dancing while playing, some of them are jumping, some of them are playing soccer. On this side here, you have the brick shuffle. Look at the teamwork that's going on there. Everybody's getting into it. They're going to change now. When they get back, the rest of the team is going to take it further.
Later in the afternoon, a dance-off challenge was held, and boy, were things burning up at Aishe.
These games are funny and it's nice, like we're enjoying it, because I can say we use our mentality and teamwork. It's working most of the time and we're enjoying it, it's fun.
When evening came, Mr. and Miss Aishe was held, and our ladies looked extremely beautiful, all dressed up, and of course our gentlemen looked just as handsome, elegant, and looking very, very fine. The winners of Mr. and Miss Aishe went to Limpopo province, and that was really an exciting moment.
I'm very happy. So I'm just glad that I did it. And good luck to the other firefighters. Even though they didn't win, but they must always know that we are all winners.
The 2.4-kilometer run, sit-ups and push-ups later followed.
And when I come into this place like this, I make sure that when I tell my God that I'm going to win it, that I'm going to win it.
This is what our MDs had to say about the games.
I think we need to incorporate a lot more fun activities on the first day just to get people more relaxed before we really start with the main structure of the games. And I think it's something that we really need to explore. There's a strategic objective in terms of how we place the games and what the games are used for, and we haven't really explored that as much as we should. But that's where we need to look at. How do we develop this into an initiative where we can actually take our young firefighters and move them into a proper sports arena?
So I think it's bring the different provinces together. It's also good to see and learn from one another. But at the end, I think people are extremely competitive and they're very, very committed in the game they play. And they throw everything into it. And I think it's quite good. The commitment is there and the passion, whatever they do, whether it's fighting fire or playing a game, they're fully committed, and that is good.
The Eastern Cape will crown the overall winners of Aishe 2014. Aishe, let's burn it up again in 2050.
And that's all what we have for you in this edition. If there's any news that happens in your provinces, please send it through to your Provincial Communication Officer. See you next time. Bye-bye.